The Five Kage Summit was a tense meeting among the five great nations. All but one felt vulnerable without their tailed beast. If it had not been for a common enemy, it's possible a fourth great ninja war would have begun at this summit. This makes me wonder what would happen if the Five Kage Summit turned ugly among the five great nations. So this video will be a video about what if a free-for-all broke out of the summit. We'll say that after it's discovered that Danzo manipulated Mifune, chaos would ensue. The samurai would evacuate, and this would leave the five Kage with their respective two bodyguards. No one will flee, and everyone will just want to be the last one standing, with or without their comrades. There's 5 teams of 15 fighters here, so it's going to be difficult to determine how this goes down. I will talk about everything in a broader sense, and not try to make a super detailed fight, because it's hard to determine what happens here. The first thing to talk about is the beginning of the fight, and how people will react. Danzo has his arm covered, so he'll need a cover to unleash it. He's right in front of a door, so he'll bolt through there with Fu and Torone in order to get ready for the battle. As for the other Kage, they'll let their guards engage for the most likely. There's so much firepower in this room, so it's definitely not going to last long. In this stage of the fight, it's important to have a good defense, because it's going to start out ugly. All 3 hidden stone ninjas can use Earth Style, so that defense will be useful. Gaara can use his sand to protect his team, but as for the Mist and Cloud ninja, they have little defense. Almost all of the bodyguards have an attack they can use here, but let's talk about the more important ones that the Kage can use. Mei's Acid Mist would be very useful in a small room like this, but there are counters to it. Tamari's Wind Style can destroy the room and disrupt the air enough to disperse the acid. Any jutsu that can destroy the room would counter the acid really. The other big jutsu to watch out for is Dust Release. In the anime, it took a second to complete, but in the manga, it's instantaneous once he's charged it up. Also, when Oneki used Particle Style against Madara's Flower World Jutsu, it was also instantaneous. So being in a small room like this is perfect for him, but he has one problem. It's possible A is familiar with Dust Release, considering both the second and third Tsuchikage had it. When Oneki told A that he smashed Sasuke to bits, A didn't seem curious as to how or where Sasuke's body was. This makes it seem like he knew what Dust Release was, since he didn't question where Sasuke's body was. Either way, it's going to take a little bit before Oneki can make it full size, and he reveals the shape of his Dust Release while charging it up. This allows anyone to counterattack, but specifically A would blitz Oneki, and cause him to have to cancel the Dust Release. That covers the 2 most lethal attacks in this situation, but we can expect for the room to be totally destroyed by a combination of attacks. The Sand and Stone Ninja are fine because of their style, but what about the Cloud of Mist? The Raikage is a tank, so he'll be fine, and Mei took a hit from a full Susanoo. This was one of Madara's clones though, and they actually seem to be weaker because they are clones. It should still allow her to survive here. Darui is probably strong enough to live through this, but C, Chojuro, and Ao probably aren't. We have no idea what Ao can do on offense, and Chojuro seems pretty physically weak. He has a good sword, but his defense is definitely worse than his offense. As for C, he also has almost no offense, and is not keeping up with the people in the room here. I think Darui has some physical strength considering he fought Suigetsu some. So at this point, the Mist is down to Mei, and the Cloud is missing C. Danzo and his men will be ready to fight at this point. The room will have been destroyed and opened up tremendously thanks to all the attacks in the beginning. Anything can happen at this point, but I'll talk about strategies and who would want to fight who here. A and Onoki are going to hyper-focus on each other because they believe they are the biggest obstacles in the room. Both of them wouldn't think much of Gaara, Danzo is a mystery to them, and Mei is unproven. They're familiar with each other, and will think that once they defeat the other, the rest of the fight will be easy. They'll let their men join the battle while they solely fight each other. I'll talk about this fight before I talk about everything else. Onoki can fly, but A has walls and pillars that he can use to jump off of. Onoki's advantage in the air is not nearly as good as inside. How well can he react to A's speed though? When they teamed up against Madara, he was able to react to A's movements by manipulating his weight right before A could punch. Just because he can react visually doesn't mean he can move in the same time though. While in the air, Onoki seems to be as fast as Deidara in the air, which is impressive. Deidara was faster than Gaara's Sand, which was faster than Sasuke's Flame Control, which was slower than the Raikage in version 2. It's a stretch, but Onoki should be able to dodge the Raikage, since he will have a lot of distance created while levitating. He can't remain untouched forever though, so what can he do offensively? Most of his Earth Style can only be used defensively in this scenario, with one exception. He can use a stone golem which rivals the size of a full Susanoo. This golem got obliterated by wood style, so we don't know what it's capable of, but we do know what A can do. The third Raikage frequently took down the Eight Tails through brute force alone, and A should be able to do the same. He has tailed B's levels of chakra, and B didn't think he could stop him when A tried to attack Naruto. If A has the ability to take down the Eight Tails, then he should be able to take down the stone golem. Lightning style counters Earth 2, making it even easier to take down. It would take time, but A would defeat the stone golem. Onuki could also make A heavier by touching him, but I don't see this happening. He'd have to get a good grip on him, and the Raikage wouldn't allow that. He'd also have to touch his lightning cloak, which would damage him. The last thing Onuki has is particle style. This isn't going to work if he tries it by itself, because the Raikage will blitz him. He can combo this with some Earth style in order to create the time needed to activate the jutsu though. Perhaps while A is fighting the stone golem, he can use particle style to encapsulate the entire room they are in. He could take out 25 full Susanos at once, so he can definitely cover any place the Raikage could run to. This is a really close fight and there are some uncertainties here. It's still possible the Raikage blitz Onuki and takes him down in one hit. Either one could win, and this outcome heavily affects the outcome for the entire free-for-all. When it comes time, I'll do 2 scenarios about how the final outcome happens if the Raikage or Tsuchikage wins. No one will focus in on each other like the Raikage and Tsuchikage, but there's a lot of strategy going on here. First, I'll talk about the Lee strategy. Danzo has 10 lives, and he will use that to his advantage. He's going to play offense, but he will be very cautious and try to outlast all his enemies really. As for Fu, he has his mind transfer jutsu, which would be a devastating one-use jutsu. Danzo would instruct him to use that on the most powerful fighter he can, which would sadly be Gaara. During the crossfire, it'll be hard to pay attention to everything at once. When the time is right, Fu will use Mind Transfer Jutsu on Gaara because Gaara stands still during fights. Tamari and Kankuro would be confused, but they would trust Gaara knows what he's doing. Danzo would use a wind amped kunai to stab through possessed Gaara's eye. Right before he does this, Fu will undo the transfer, and Gaara will be dead. It's a lame way for Gaara to go out, but it makes sense. The Mind Transfer Jutsu will be used, and what's a better target than a Kazekage who stands still? There's plenty of ways for him to be killed, but this is the most efficient one. Everyone else would be able to observe what happened and figure out the jutsu. This means everyone would be on their toes from now on, and it wouldn't work again most likely. As for Turone, his poisonous punch wouldn't be able to land on most people here. Mei is too good for him, the Sand Shinobi are long-range fighters, and Darui has a sword. The only people he can get in range to touch is Akatsuchi and Kurotsuchi. This isn't a guarantee to happen, but it's something to keep in mind. As for Darui, he's alone here and that spells trouble. He's got good offense with his Black Lightning and Gale style, but he has no defense. His enemies may realize that it would be easy to team up on him since he's alone. I can see him taking out at most one other guard here before he's ganged up on. As for Tamari, Oliver wind style gets countered by Danzo's wind style. As for Kankuro, he has the Sasori puppet, which would be very problematic for the Jonin in the room. As for Akatsuchi, he can only really rely on his defense, and he can cover for Kurotsuchi. She has her lava style that's sticky, and this would be problematic for the long-range Sand Shinobi. Lastly, there is Mei, who can threaten anyone in the room with her jutsus. Let's try to impact all the information that I just dumped here. Danzo, Mei, Kankuro, and Darui can threaten anyone in the room. Kurotsuchi can threaten the Sand Shinobi, and Turone can threaten the Stone Shinobi. We can expect Fu to be eliminated early, because he's not much of a fighter, and I expect the same for Darui, because he's vulnerable all alone. After that, Turone will probably be taken out, but he takes out Akatsuchi in the process. This leaves Kurotsuchi vulnerable, and everyone will team up on her vulnerability. This leaves Tamari and Kankuro versus Danzo versus Mei. Kankuro and Tamari are high-level Jonin, but they are a little out of their league here. As this fight goes on, they'll eventually be killed due to being outmatched by Danzo and Mei's impressive offense. So to recap everything so far, Ao, Chojuro, and C die quick because they're weak and unproven. After they die, the Leaf will enter the fight, and the Raikage and Tsuchikage will separate to do their own fight. Gaara's immobility will cause him to be killed with the Mind Transfer Jutsu early on in the battle. After that, Fu will be killed due to being weak, and Darui will be ganged up on since he's alone. Turone will take out Akatsuchi, and shortly after, he will also be taken out. Then Kurotsuchi will be ganged up on since she'd be all alone. After that, Tamari and Kankuro would eventually be taken down by either Danzo or Mei, because they're just outmatched here. Now we've made it to Scenario 1, which is Onuki defeats the Raikage. He'll have used up a lot of chakra at this point, and will be left with the last 2 standing. Danzo and Mei will mostly be fresh, and at worst, Danzo will have 1 out of his 10 Sharingan used for an Izanagi. So how does this fight go down? Mei's lava and fire style can't really be countered by Danzo, but Onuki can counter them with earth style some. Mei will pick up on this and focus on Danzo. I can see Danzo getting killed once here, because he has little room to run while inside. Once he uses Izanagi, this will catch both Mei and Onuki's eye. As soon as Sasuke took a moment to think after killing Danzo 3 times, he was able to hypothesize that his Sharingans were the key to Izanagi. Onuki is sharp, and he will begin to wonder what's going on too. Mei will have observed that Danzo didn't use many jutsu before, and wonder if he's just trying to outlast everyone, especially since he just escaped certain death somehow. Both Mei and Onuki will realize that fighting each other will exhaust them and allow Danzo to outlast them. They'll decide to team up at least until they figure out how Danzo survived Mei's attack. We'll say that Danzo has 8 lives here. Here are some ways I anticipate him dying in this fight. Onuki will definitely use Particle Style once, since it seems like an uncounterable jutsu. This will put Onuki at a very low chakra level, but once he does this, he'll figure out Izanagi. Mei could also get him 1 or 2 times with their jutsu arsenal. Other than that, there's not much they can do here without running out of chakra. Onuki making Danzo heavier doesn't really solve the problem. His stone golem can be countered by Danzo's summon, along with his wind style. Onuki can protect himself with earth style, but Mei is vulnerable to Danzo's wind style. There's also the possibility Danzo puts a curse mark on one of them and paralyzes them. I see Danzo taking out Mei here, actually losing a few lives and then defeating Onuki because he has no chakra left. Danzo's Izanagi is perfect for a free-for-all, but can he win in Scenario 2? In Scenario 2, A beats Onuki and still has plenty of chakra left. He's left with Danzo and Mei, but he's not sharp enough to team up with Mei here. Both Danzo and Mei could probably keep pace with the version 1 Lightning Cloak. It'd be a losing matchup in that area, but they wouldn't get destroyed. Once the Raikage enters version 2 though, it's all over. Sasuke couldn't even really track him with his Mangekyo Sharingan, so Danzo and Mei definitely couldn't. The third Raikage had the stamina to fight for 3 days straight too, so there's not going to be any slowing down by A. He'll take out Mei first and then eventually Danzo will run out of Sharingan. Once again, the one with the most stamina wins the free-for-all here. So how do each of the Kage and their bodyguards do overall? If Onuki beats A, then the Cloud finishes last. They're followed by the Sand at 4th because Gaara is unlucky here. After that, it's the Mist at 3rd, and the Stone in 2nd place. The Hokage wins in this scenario because he'd be able to outlast his opponents with Izanagi. If A beats Onuki though, then the Stone would finish last. The Sand would finish in 4th again, and the Mist in 3rd. The Leaf finish in 2nd, and the Cloud finishes in 1st because A had the most stamina in the end. So really what was key here was stamina. A is limitless, and something like Izanagi is also perfect for a free-for-all. The constants here are the Sand being 4th and the Mist being 3rd. The bodyguards are mostly only useful to take out other guards, so village placement depended on how their Kage did. This was a fun video to make because it was my first free-for-all. I'd love to hear ideas in the comments of other free-for-all ideas, and I could make them into videos. I'd make them if they were close and interesting. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. Comment something if you have something to say. And thank you all for watching, and I guess I'll see y'all next time.